Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. And I mentioned in last week's episode of Mingles that we now have our very own dedicated Salt Mines Discord server. In the space of about 3 days, it went from 94 to well over 4,000 users. So the moderators have their work cut out for them. I certainly don't envy them that job. You can see why I was extremely hesitant to actually do my own Discord server, and why it's a much better idea to get a minion to do it for you. Yeah. Speaking of the Discord server, if you are a Patreon supporter, or by some miracle still a Twitch subscriber, I realise there aren't that many of you left because it's been months since I actually did anything on Twitch, and that's fine. I certainly don't expect people to stay subscribed to a Twitch channel that never broadcasts anything. But if you do still have a Twitch subscription to me going, and if you are a Patreon supporter, then you have a special rank available. Rank, is that the right word? I suppose so. A special rank available on the Discord server. And at some point in the future, we will be putting special supporter-only rooms or channels on the Discord server specifically for people who will subscribe to me on Twitch, or who support me on Patreon, just as a little thank you for going just that little bit above and beyond the Call of Duty. I am on the Discord server every day. I do read, well, I try to read everything, but it's not possible with over 4,000 people posting messages. But I do try to read everything, and I am also quite active on the Discord server. I usually have something to say on most days. So, the link down below for the invitation to the Discord server, anybody who's not already signed up for it, although I suspect that anybody who wants to is already there at this stage, but just in case you're not, link down below in the video description to the Salt Mine Discord server. And of course, once again, thank you very, very much to the moderators for taking care of the whole thing for me, because I'm both too lazy and too incompetent to do it myself. Right. Well, this is going to be a fairly busy week for me, although I suspect, well, I know most of you are probably not really going to care too much why. It's because Monday night is when the Battle for Azeroth expansion for World of Warcraft comes out. Yes, I know, I still play World of Warcraft. But it turns out I'm not alone. Another World of Warships community contributor, goes by the name of Yuzral, is also a keen World of Warcraft player, and by an incredible coincidence, he not only plays on the same server as me, but he also mostly plays Alliance. So we've decided, it was his suggestion, but it's a good idea, that we're going to hit the expansion together, and he's going to live stream it. Now, this isn't necessarily a good idea, because I don't know how many of you actually play World of Warcraft, or who have suffered through expansion release dates in the past, but what usually happens is you book 3 or 4 days off work. You tell your nearest and dearest not to get too excited because they won't be seeing you for those 3 or 4 days. Because you're going to be manacled to the computer adventuring in Azeroth. You stock up on all kinds of food and drink, preferably stuff that can be microwaved very quickly or just eaten straight out of the packet. And then you get ready to log in when the expansion goes live. So that at least is the plan. Yuzral and I are planning to get together on his live stream 5 minutes before midnight UK time for the release of the Battle for Azeroth expansion for World of Warcraft. And the plan is for everybody to enjoy watching us blunder our way through the new expansion as of 5 minutes to midnight tonight. What's probably actually going to happen is that the first 4 or possibly even 5 hours of the stream will be simply me and Yuzral just talking bullshit to each other while we wait for the login servers to recover from the strain of everybody in the Western Hemisphere all trying to log in at the same time. I have every confidence that this is exactly what's going to happen, because despite the fact that Blizzard Activision are quite literally shitting money, they still fail to put enough login servers up every time they release an expansion for World of Warcraft. And so the experience of a new World of Warcraft expansion for the overwhelming majority of players is staring at the login screen, reading the "you have been disconnected" message. So I'm kind of covering my bets here. I mean, I'm announcing that I will be joining Yuzral's live stream for the launch of the expansion, but at the same time, I just don't get too excited, because there's probably not going to be an awful lot to see for the first couple of hours, based on previous experience of World of Warcraft expansions. Anyway, if you fancy trying your luck, link down below in the video description to Yusral's Twitch channel, where I will be joining him at 5 minutes to midnight UK time tonight. So, attempting to play World of Warcraft, the Battle for Azeroth, is what I have planned for most of the rest of this week. I've already told Rita that she's on her own for the next few days. she can feed herself. Don't worry, she'll be fine. I've told her if she gets confused, just read the back of the packet. The oven's not that hard. Remembering to put videos up every day is going to be a bit of a strain, that much I can guarantee you. It's the same every time there's a major expansion for World of Warcraft come out. Everything else just becomes, yeah, I'll worry about that later. So, yeah, that's what I've got planned for most of the rest of this week. Last week, I've been playing another new game. Well, it's not really new, it's been out for, I think, 2 years now. But it's new to me. Well, I'll say it's been out for 2 years now. I think it was put out in early access in 2016, so technically it has been out for 2 years. Although you wouldn't really know it by playing it. What are you talking about, Jingles? No Man's Sky. I finally got around to giving it a go. I had resisted playing it for so long, purely because of all the bad reviews it had been getting. It was buggy, it was broken, there was no content in it. But lately I've noticed that more and more people are starting to stream it on Twitch, and so I started to watch a couple of streams. There's one guy called Sheriff Eli. I've been watching him play, and I thought, you know what, it doesn't look that bad actually, I'll give it a go. And it's not that bad. It's actually very good. At last. I mean, you know, it took them long enough. It's kind of an open world sandbox exploration survival combat game. And at first that's exactly what it was. There was no actual story there, no guidance. I mean, this is the sort of thing you probably should expect of an early access game, but that was 2 years ago. You know, it's been around a while now. And until fairly recently, it was kind of like playing Subnautica, but without the story. And if you can imagine how dull and boring that would be, well, maybe not at first. At first it's like, oh wow, check this out, I can go anywhere, do anything. But that's the problem with a pure sandbox game. I mean, some people really enjoy that. But most people need some form of guidance. You know, what's the point? Why am I doing this? Why should I care? And so in August of last year, a patch was released for the game which basically put all that sort of thing in. And they did do a very good job. There's now an actual story that you can follow from the start, which will guide you through the process of, well, not dying, basically. You start off without any idea of who you are or how you got there on a randomly generated planet somewhere in the galaxy. The chances are good that the planet is going to be extremely hostile, and so your first 5 minutes generally tend to be you running around like a headless chicken trying to find the basic materials that you need in order to just not die as soon as you start playing the game. I can only imagine what this must have been like back when the game was in early access, or even prior to August 2017 before they introduced these systems into the game. It must have been absolutely brutal for a new player. You're probably going to spend your first 4 or 5 hours just running around trying to not die. And also to fix up the crashed starship that you're given directions to, so you can actually get off the planet and get somewhere civilized. But it's when you do get off the first planet, which is completely randomly generated and can have any one of half a dozen different types of extremely hostile environments, that you realise just how big this game is. I mean, it's big in an Elite Dangerous kind of big. In fact, it's probably even bigger. Elite Dangerous boasts the same billions and billions and billions of different planets in the galaxy, but you can't land on all of the planets in Elite Dangerous. You can land on some of them, and at some point in the future I've no doubt that they're going to patch in the ability to land on, well, anywhere that actually has a surface into Elite Dangerous, but that's some way off in the future. In No Man's Sky, you've got this, right from the start. They've estimated that there are a quintillion planets available in the galaxy, and you can fly from any one of them to any other one of them. And when you get to the surface, they're all going to look like this. Well, not like this exactly. They all have different environments. Some are going to be freezing, some are going to be extremely hot, some are going to be toxic, some are going to be irradiated. Occasionally you might get lucky and find a place like this that actually has a reasonably gentle environment, but don't count on it. I have actually been looking for a game like this for quite some time now. Something that I can just play for hours and hours and hours and potentially never finish. I mean, Elite Dangerous kind of ticks those boxes as well. And up to a point Subnautica did, but Subnautica has a definite end point. You finish the story and you're done. No Man's Sky now has a story as well, but I've put something like 15 hours into this particular save, and I still feel as if I'm just scratching the surface. Ooh, Jingles landing on a space station confirmed. They have automatic docking procedures and I still managed the Jingles landing. Oh, Jingles, don't ever change. I am coming down with a cold, by the way, in case it wasn't obvious from the way I sound. And this is entirely normal as well. Every time a World of Warcraft expansion comes out, I clear the table of everything that I have planned, and then I come down with a cold. Those are the rules. You know, I don't make the rules up, I just work here. But, yeah, this game, I was extremely hesitant about actually putting the money down and buying it, because I've heard some utter horror stories about No Man's Sky. It was broken, buggy, rushed, unfinished. All of these terms at some point have applied to No Man's Sky. Lack of content, nothing to do. What there was to do didn't work the way it should have worked. It's definitely been guilty of all of these accusations. And it's certainly not 100% bug-free even today. Although I've only really encountered one bug in the 4 or 5 days that I've been playing this game. One bug that I even recognised as a bug, but it was a bit of a game breaker. Apparently it's been in the game, well, since the start. If you dock your ship in a freighter and you randomly get assigned to the landing pad that's closest to the hangar bay doors, let's just say you'd best hope that you've done a manual save recently, because this is one that actually happened to me. I'd actually docked at a freighter 3 or 4 times previously with that. In fact, I owned one relatively soon after getting into space for the first time. You end up in charge of your own freighter with its supporting frigate. You can't actually fly them, but you can send them out to conduct expeditions for you. And it was on my 4th or 5th journey back to my freighter when the game landed me at the landing pad closest to the hangar bay doors. And I didn't think anything of it until I tried to take off again. Nope. It just wouldn't happen. Couldn't launch my ship. Which meant I was stuck on the freighter forever. So that was all kinds of fun, and necessitated a complete restart of the game, right from scratch. So, you know, the lesson here is, for God's sake, fix your game already, and save often and save early. I mean, the game will automatically save every time you disembark from your ship, but those are auto saves. Get yourself a manual save spot and update it regularly. But that is the only bug that I can honestly say I've really experienced. Well, other than that one. I've landed my ship in a tree. Does that technically count as a Jingles landing? I'm going to call it a Jingles landing. Oh, hang on a minute. Ooh, there's a sentinel watching me. Yeah, these little buggers don't like it when you go zapping trees and digging stuff up. It's all part of the story. I don't want to give you any further spoilers, but yeah. Yeah, I still like the game. It has masses of potential, but more importantly, I can't see myself finishing this anytime soon. I'm not even sure you can finish this. I mean, I assume that at some point you're going to complete the storyline, but I don't think the game's necessarily going to end there. I can see myself still enjoying this game months or even years from now. Still plugging away at it, still exploring the galaxy, seeing new stuff, meeting new people, and killing them. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of space combat and surface combat in the game as well. Not all of the space combat is consensual. You can get jumped by pirates if you're carrying anything particularly juicy in your cargo hold. But this game has definitely come along in leaps and bounds since it was in early access. And I am very, very glad that I did not get into this game when it was in early access, because I can only imagine what a nightmare it must have been. But at the same time, I am very grateful to everybody who did get into this game when it was in early access and suffering through it for me. Because if not for the support of the people who backed this game when it was in its early development stages, it probably wouldn't be around for me to enjoy. And it's mostly finished and mostly polished form now. It is ferociously grindy, by the way. And that may be a big turn-off for a lot of you, and that's completely understandable. It does take a while gathering resources, figuring out the resources that you actually need in the first place, and then getting those resources, and then processing them into more advanced resources to build the stuff that you need to actually get anything done. For example, I've got the old multi-tool out and I'm using the built-in mining laser to drill away at a tree for a source of carbon, because I need condensed carbon to build a thing. So I'm harvesting carbon from the tree, and then my multi-tool cuts out. Oh, it's run out of fuel. What fuel does the multi-tool's mining laser use? Carbon. Okay. So I top it off with some of the carbon that I was using to hopefully turn into condensed carbon, which means I now need to mine even more carbon. You get the idea. Then, of course, you take your carbon to your refiner, which required all kinds of materials to construct. You pop your portable refinery down. You dump the carbon into the input hopper. It's now ready to go and turn it all into condensed carbon so you can build your thing. All you have to do is put some fuel into the refinery. Guess what fuel the refinery uses? Yep, more carbon. Well, it uses more stuff than just carbon, but at this stage, carbon's probably all you're actually going to have your hands on, so yeah. You're going to spend a lot of time drilling holes in trees with your mining laser in order to extract carbon. But that is the nature of this sort of game. It's why it can take you months and months and months to play it. You may enjoy that sort of thing, you may not, but if you do, I'm very, very happy to be able to say that No Man's Sky is actually, at long last, worth playing. Right, anyway, moving along swiftly. There are a couple of things that I do need to mention in this week's episode of Mingles. In fact, they're both things that I should have mentioned in last week's episode of Mingles. But I actually wrote them down this time so I wouldn't forget. Well, actually, that's no guarantee that I'm not going to forget. You see, I have a text file on my desktop, and any time something occurs to me that I should talk about in Mingles or Jingles, I put it down in this text file. Foolproof, yeah? Yeah, no. Sometimes I forget to read the text file. It's come to the stage where certain people, and I'm talking about Sammy Hallam here, the guy who does all of the Jingles artwork that we know and love, has actually suggested that I stick post-it notes on my monitor. Bless you, Sammy, you are such an optimist. You actually believe that I would remember to write things on a post-it note. But I have remembered this time. Sammy is the guy who also runs the Salt Mines store, where you can get your hands on all kinds of Jingles merchandise, all personally designed by Sammy himself. And he's begged me to mention the store in an episode of Mingles with Jingles, because basically, unless I say anything, nothing happens. No, everybody forgets it's there because it's buried down below in a link in the video description. So I'm pimping out the store again on behalf of Sammy, who has put a lot of hard work into it. Link down below in the video description to the Salt Mines store. Seriously, every time I mention it in an episode of Mingles, sales jump. And every time I don't mention it in an episode of Mingles with Jingles, the needle doesn't move. So I really should probably be mentioning it more. Or at least, ever. I can't remember the last time I did it. I don't get any of this stuff for free, by the way. I mean, I've got a couple of my own Mighty Jingles t-shirts. It's my face on these bloody things, and I have to pay full price for them. Oh, I don't know. Don't they know who I am? Anyway, Sammy, I mentioned the store. Sammy will be happy now. Because he has put a lot of work in, and he doesn't get an awful lot out of it. So, the Mighty Jingles store. Jingles merchandise for gnomes of all ages. Link down below in the video description. Which brings us on to the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles, because I need to make sure I get to bed good and early so I can get lots of sleep in advance of sitting staring at the login screen for World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth for at least the first 4 or 5 hours after midnight tonight. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is Gamescom. I wasn't planning on going to Gamescom this year. I don't really enjoy Gamescom that much because well, call me a bluff old traditionalist, but I don't really see the point of standing in a queue for 3 hours to spend 15 minutes playing a game that you really need to spend a couple of hours on to get any kind of idea about A, whether or not it's any good, or B, whether or not you're actually going to enjoy it. But if for some bizarre reason it seems to be an incredibly popular thing to do. Just not for me. So yeah, I wasn't really planning on going to Gamescom. And then World of Warcraft said, Jingles, do you want to come to Gamescom? We'll pay for your flights. We'll put you in a hotel. I said, can I take Rita as well? They said, yeah, sure. What's the catch? Well, would you mind streaming some World of Warships? I thought, oh yeah, okay, well, fair enough. So that's what we're going to be doing. On the afternoon of Saturday the 25th of August, live from Gamescom in Cologne, Germany, I will be streaming World of Warships from the Wargaming display. They'll probably have me locked away in a little booth somewhere, hunched in front of a bunch of monitors. They'll probably have a glass wall, probably one-way glass as well, so I don't realise everybody's pointing and laughing at me. And we're going to be streaming World of Warships for a few hours. It's going to go out on YouTube and Twitch. Probably not Facebook, because Facebook is shit. Seriously, you don't know the half of it. Trying to stream on Facebook, it works, but they don't make it easy. Speaking of not making it easy, I'm not the only one doing this, of course. There's a whole bunch of other community contributors who are going to be streaming from Gamescom for World of Warships. But most people use OBS. I don't. I used XSplit when I was streaming. I have no idea how to use OBS. So they said, if you need anything, send us all of your assets well in advance. We'll sort it all out for you. Let us know your stream settings and all kinds of other technical things that I had no idea what they were talking about. Make sure you send us your broadcast keys. I was like, what the hell's a broadcast key? I said, you what? So, what's a broadcast key? A stream key? Yeah, what's a stream key? I don't know. They said, well, we can sort that out when you get here. We'll get somebody to talk you through it. Now, your OBS settings, I'm like, whoa, I don't use OBS. They said, what do you mean you don't use OBS? Everybody uses OBS. I said, well, everybody apart from me. What do you use? I use XSplit. Well, we can install XSplit for you. Just make sure you bring your stream key. I said, well, back again to our original problem. What the hell's a stream key? This has all been figured out since then, of course. But the problem, well, one of the many problems, was that nobody at Wargaming uses XSplit, so they had no idea how to set everything up in advance for me getting there. So what it eventually came down to was a Discord call from Wargaming EU, from their Prague office, saying, Jingles, would you mind using OBS? I said, well, I can use it, but you might not like it because I've never used OBS before. I'm not that good at using XSplit, but I've never touched OBS. I haven't got a clue how it works. So, well, it's really not difficult. I say, you seriously underestimate my ability to screw things up. But they've promised that everything's going to be set up, and they're going to set up a stream deck, and they'll just have a bunch of buttons on it, and I won't have to get involved in any, actually knowing what I'm doing. I just press the relevant buttons, and it should all work. But I think they have seriously underestimated my ability to mess things up. I'm sure everything's going to go horribly wrong. The Jingles effect is going to be in full force, but hey, at least it'll be funny. So that's the afternoon of Saturday the 25th of August, when I will be most likely messing everything up in spectacular fashion while attempting to stream World of Warships live from Gamescom in Cologne. And, I hope to see a lot of you guys there as well. I'm there for 3 days, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and I'm only streaming on the Saturday afternoon, so I'll have plenty of opportunity to get in there and mingle with the crowd, maybe throw some t-shirts at you with Mr. Conway from the stage. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I am going to Gamescom. Didn't plan to, but you know, when somebody phones up and says, we want to pay you to come to Gamescom, I mean, it would be churlish to refuse, really. I don't know. And my mum said, you know, you'll never get anywhere playing those silly games. Oh, bless you, mum. Right, anyway, that's it. I need to go and get some sleep, so I'm good and refreshed for not playing Battle for Azeroth, the expansion for World of Warcraft, tonight, when the servers inevitably crash. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you all have a great week. And as always, take care. And I'll catch you next time.